Just to let you know, we are going to be recording the session for everyone who couldn't make it today, so they can stay in touch with what we discussed, with the topics. Hi, Angeline from Spain. Okay, so we will begin. If at any time there is any problem with the audio, with the presentation, please feel free to open your mic and let me know, because I won't be able to see you during the presentation as I'm sharing my screen. So first of all, I would like to invite Myline to present. For those of you who weren't present in our first meeting, a little bit of what's the ITAC Climate Collective, what is our objective, and the different ways in which you can engage with us and the different activities we develop. So Madeline, the mic is all yours.
Thank you. I'll be very quick because I think there's a jam-packed agenda. And welcome everyone to the new ITAC Climate Collective meetings. We had one meeting last month, which was the Climate Cafe. And so that will start to give you a feel for what this relaunch of the Climate Collective is aiming to do. So for those of you who were involved in the past, you know we had our pilot year last year, led by the fabulous Caitlin Kaminga, and that really set us off on a path of understanding how people want to engage with the Climate Collective. It was first launched because we did the ITAC Impact Climate open call for artists, and we had something like 100 applications in the space of a few weeks from people in our community who do work in the climate space, and we could only commission 5. And so then the question became, how do we all stay in touch and keep supporting each other's work? And there was a real appetite for that community not to just go away and to stay involved and stay contributing. So as a response to that, we launched the Climate Collective. And that is an ongoing space where we can all come together and figure out how to collectively make an impact through teaching artistry in the climate space. And last year, something we really learned was the need and the desire to contribute in slightly different ways. So we have now relaunched with Agustina and Mary leading the way. And the goal now is to offer these spaces where the different contributions can happen. So the Climate Collective meetings, like the one we're in today, will be a place for collective gathering, discussion, and professional development. We'll have speakers and we'll hear about the different things going on. The climate cafes will be the place where we can artistically contribute to some kind of ongoing campaign. Those will be more like creative art making spaces. And then we have the advocacy action items, which are for people who, for whatever reason, can't attend the meetings, but want to do something practical each month to help further a cause. Paloma Costa is putting those together for us and is working with Mary and Agustina to shape the arc of all of this. And it's very much informed by what we hear in these meetings as being useful and needed. So those are sort of the 3 different ways you can contribute. We hope you'll do them all and that you'll join us for all of them, but also that you'll spread the word and invite people along. So that's just a quick framing of what the Climate Collective has been, how it got started, and what I hope and what we hope it will continue to be.
Thank you so much, Matt. So this is the agenda we have planned for today. As you can see, it's quite ambitious, but the idea for today is to start introducing ourselves about what is the climate crisis and what does it mean, the climate change phenomenon. So that's where we are going to start from. And then we're going to hear from 2 special guests about their experiences attending the climate negotiations and the different ways they use art as a mean to call for action, to raise awareness, and to participate, yes, during or in the framework of these climate negotiations. So, firstly, to start talking about the climate crisis and to understand what is the phenomenon of climate change, firstly, we need to understand two other main concepts. I'm not muted again. No? Okay. Two other main concepts, which are the greenhouse effect and the global warming. And in a second, we are going to discuss also why is it so important to differentiate both of these concepts and to understand the different phenomena they are referring to. So firstly, the greenhouse effects, and here it's important to notice that it's a natural phenomenon that is responsible for generating all the climate conditions that allow life on Earth as we know it. How does it work? We have the energy coming from the sun entering our Earth atmosphere and then creating, creating the temperature conditions that we have today. And part of this energy is then expelled back out of this atmosphere. So here we need to think of, again, the Earth atmosphere as a permeable membrane that allows this exchange of energy, where we have the energy entering, warming the Earth's surface, and part of this energy is later expelled back outside. So again, this is a natural phenomenon responsible for all the climate conditions that allow our lives, such as the temperature, the rain, the winds, the humidity, etc., etc. So where does the problem start? Since the Industrial Revolution, humans have been expelling to the atmosphere or emitting to the atmosphere what are called greenhouse gases. These gases exacerbate the greenhouse effect. So what happens is that this permeable membrane becomes less and less permeable. So we have the same energy coming from the sun is almost constant, but the difference is the amount of energy that goes back outside our atmosphere. Yeah, so we are starting to keep inside our Earth more and more energy. And what this is causing is a sustained increase in the Earth's surface temperature. This phenomenon was called global warming, this sustained increase in the global surface temperature. And notice, please, we haven't talked about climate change yet. We have greenhouse effect, the natural effect that allows life on Earth. We have global warming, the result of years and years of accumulating greenhouse gases in our atmosphere that derive in this increase in the Earth's surface temperature. And climate change is a more intricate and multidimensional phenomenon that derives from this first phenomenon, which is global warming. Climate change is all the impacts and the changes in the climatic or climatological patterns that derive in many different effects, such as changes in the patterns of rains, such as changes in the composition of our atmosphere, and other effects that we are going to see later on. So we need to understand this differentiation between all of these three concepts, where we have, again, the natural effect, the anthropogenic effect of global warming or the increase in temperature, and all the effects that are derived from, or that are a consequence of this first phenomenon. And here is also important to understand that climate change is a multidimensional phenomenon which affects not only the natural sphere or dimensions, not only the biodiversity and the climatic or climatological patterns of the Earth, but it also has impacts in our economics and in our culture and our communities. So we talk of it as a multidimensional phenomenon. So why is it important to differentiate all of these concepts? Well, sometimes they are used as equals on purpose to generate different meanings and different misconceptions and misinformations regarding this problem. And here we have our the best example of this, which was Donald Trump, the ex-president of the United States. And I don't know if you remember him a few years ago when there was a snowstorm in Florida. It was snowing, which is something that almost never happened in this region. And he was, where is the global warming if I am freezing to death? So this was a misuse of these concepts. And paradoxically, the thing that he was living there, this phenomenon, this storm they were having in Florida, was a direct impact of climate change. But he used the term global warming because it was cold. What happens so that we can understand all these different phenomena? Global warming, as we said before, is the increase in the global temperature. This increase generated the melting of the glacier ice. This ice that we have mostly in Greenland and Canada enters the ocean and enters directly in a warm current they have here, the International Transporter, which is a warm current, oceanic current that warms the eastern coast of the United States. This cold water that derived from the melting of the glaciers enters in this warm current, and it lowers its temperature and also makes it go like slower. Sorry, in Spanish, this makes all the sense. I hope you're understanding me, but it makes this current go slower. So the direct effect of this is that the eastern coast of the United States doesn't get as warm as it would normally be. So this impact, the snowstorm, is a direct impact of climate change. We derived from, or it's a consequence of, the global warming, the increase in the temperature. So you see how different politicians and many times different organizations use these concepts mischievously, like they use them to create this misunderstanding and misconceptions. So that's why we considered it important for you to understand the difference between all of these three. So is any doubt here? Was it clear? Anyone wants to answer in the chat? If anyone has any question, please raise your hand or activate your mic. Okay. Perfect. So the United Nations Framework on Climate Change, or UNFCCC, has its own definition of what the climate change is. And it says that is all the climate changes or the changes in the climate patterns that are attributed directly or indirectly to human activity, which are derived or a consequence of the alteration of the composition of the global atmosphere due to all the greenhouse gas emissions that are condensed there, and it adds to the natural climate variability observed during comparable time periods. And here, to start understanding this concept, there are two main points I want to focus on. Firstly, which is in bold letters, which is the result of years of scientific production and international negotiations, and it's the recognition that this phenomenon is a direct consequence of our activity, of the way we produce energy, of the way we consume different kind of fossil fuels, of different activities we developed and that are the base of our development model. So this is the first important part. We are talking specifically of a human-derived phenomenon. So that's the first important point. And the second one is this idea of observed during comparable time periods. Many times I think you will hear people saying, okay, but climate on Earth changes a long time. We had glacier periods, we have deglacier periods, which is the one we are living now. But the importance is that we compare these time frames. So I have an image here to understand why we are talking about a crisis and why this phenomenon is important to understand what we are generating and the different dynamics we are creating in our climate. This picture shows is the entirety of Earth history put in one day. So we have in the first 23 hours, we have the appearance of the first animals, the appearance of the first living organisms around the 19th hour. The first fish appear around 21. Yes, the first dinosaurs appear around almost 23. Yes, and here we have the dinosaurs extinction, and the human appears almost at midnight, a few minutes before midnight. And our industrial revolution was the last seconds of this day. So in the last seconds, we are creating changes that it took the Earth almost 24 hours to generate. So in these 23 and 59 hours, we had glaciations, we have raise and decrease on temperature, we have different patterns of climatological dimensions, and we are generating equal changes, or changes are equals to this in just a few seconds. So this is why it's important, that part of the definition, observed during comparable time periods. So the changes we are generating today are not comparable to the changes that naturally occur in Earth. And what does this generate? The main problem is that we are not giving the Earth and the ecosystems the time they need to adjust to these changes. It will normally take thousands or millions of years to generate these changes and to allow Earth to adapt to it. But since we are generating all these impacts in such a short amount of time, Earth is not capable of adapting. And we are seeing as a consequence of this, the decrease in the capability of the ecosystems to sustain life. We are seeing a mass extinction and a terrible loss of biodiversity as a direct consequence of this, because species are not able to adapt to the new consequences we are generating. So which are the different drivers or the different activities that human develop that create or that emit these greenhouse gases? These are the main of them. You can imagine that almost every activity we develop emits at least a little bit of, or some amount of greenhouse gases. But the main of them are the agro-livestock industry, deforestation, and land use change. Very simple, land use change is where you pass from having a natural forest, from different processes, even deforestation or wildfires, you lost this forest and sorry. Anybody had a comment? Okay. So land use change is when you had a forest, and from different processes you lost that forest, and instead of planting or do activities of recovery and reforestation, you change the use that land had, and you use it, for example, for agro-livestock production, or to expand the what's the name in English, like the construction, the cities and the urbanization of the land. So when you change the use this land was having, that's what this refers to. Thirdly, we have industrial production, then burning of fossil fuels, and lastly, energy production. Yes. For each country and for each region, which of these is the main driver of the main emitter of greenhouse gases may vary. For example, here in Latin America, our main source of greenhouse gas emissions comes from the agro-industry and the energy production, and also for deforestation and land use change. We are sadly, one of the regions with the highest deforestation rate in the world. For other countries, mostly for Europe and the United States and Canada, the main emitter is the industrial sector and the burning of fossil fuels derived from transport. So it can vary from one country to another, depending on the conditions and on the development model and production model each country has. Which are the main impacts we are already seeing from climate change? Firstly, this one that I already mentioned, which is the biodiversity loss. We also have the increase on the average temperature of the Earth, the change in rainfall patterns, ice loss from glaciers, the increase in the magnitude and frequency of extreme weather events, the appearance of diseases, the depletion of natural resources, and stronger and more frequent heat waves. And these are impacts that we are already seeing all over the world. So when we talk about climate action, and I mean for this, the different ways that we address the fight against climate change, there are two main of doing so. One is adaptation, which means adapting or developing different activities that allow the human and natural dimensions to adapt to the impacts of climate change, or to reduce its impacts and to reduce the damage it creates. And mitigation, which is oriented to reducing the amount of greenhouse gas that we emit, so that we stop or reduce the exacerbation of the climate change. So, and I promise this is the last of the boring part, and we can follow with the experience, which are more funny and which are the part that we are going to engage with. But at the international level, there are different platforms and organizations that are trying to address the climate fight, or the fight against climate change, and also to include or to call all the countries in the world to engage in this climate ambition and to decrease the amount of greenhouse gases that they emit. That's why in 1992, here in Brazil, in the Conference of the Earth, in the Earth Summit in Rio, was signed an international treaty that created the UNFCCC, or the United Nations Framework on Climate Change, Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is the main UN body that helps the international negotiations on climate change. And the main organ for this body, or for this organization, is the Conference of the Parties, or the COP. Each year, we have a meeting of this COP where all the countries that are part of the convention, which are 193 countries, it's one of the most representative organisms in the United Nations. And it's really important because that talks about an international agreement on the importance of the climate fight, or the fight against climate change. So each year we have a COP. This year we have the number 27th of this Conference of the Parties, which is going to take place in Egypt. So each year the place where this conference is held varies, in order to allow different voices to participate and different countries to give their own input to the negotiations. So that's it for now. I want to know if you have any doubts, if it was clear, if you have any questions before we go to the next part. Or anyone has any comment about what we were talking about? Okay. So now I'm going to invite Russ to tell us a little bit about his experience attending these conferences. He's an archivist and he has gone to many COPs and taken a lot of inspiration from these negotiations to engage and develop different campaigns regarding climate action and particularly climate injustices. So Russ, welcome. I will stop sharing my screen so that you can share yours.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Russell Varita. I'm based on the island of Panay here in the Philippines. We are currently experiencing a typhoon right now. North of my island is flooded and some areas as well of the archipelago. But I'd like to just share this briefly that from the previous meeting, I did mention that I joined COP back in 2005, so that's like 17 years ago. COP 11, that is in Montreal in Canada, and also 2007 in COP 13 in Bali, Indonesia. And after that, I've been engaged with several campaigns here in the Philippines and some networks as well around the world, until eventually I get involved with ITAC, which somehow also encapsulated the idea of importance of teaching artists, especially on climate campaigns. I will not really talk about the whole policy, because when I was back in 2005, I thought, wow, the UN was really the most ununited nations during these conferences because of a lot of negotiations. Yet on the other hand, I was part of the youth sector during the COP 11 in Montreal, and we've been basically focusing a lot with lobbying during my time in the COP. And so I'll just share some images right here. I don't know if you can see it, but the first image, if you can see, basically the big part of my experience during this time was the climate march, and it happens a lot every time there's a COP, and this was during in COP 11, about 20,000 climate campaigners and the locals as well who joined the climate march. It's showing a lot of solidarity and also creativity, and this is really where I thought artivism is an important tool of putting out the publications for climate campaigns. And during that time, the young people organized this collective called It's Getting Hot in Here.org, and it became an important tool for young activists joining the COP every year as a communication hub for all the campaigns. Also, one of the, I guess, the fun thing as well during this time of the meeting is the performance campaigns, where it happens every after the plenary sessions. The young people organize this art activities inside the plenary session, and one of them was this one was inspired by John and Yuko. It's the Dead in for Peace campaign when it happened in Montreal back in 2005, and also in 2007 when I was part of Greenpeace. We know the works of Greenpeace, but the focus of this one was really joining the youth group of Greenpeace, which is called the Solar Generation. And again, it's putting spotlight on the next generation of the next generation, these are the children, young people. But on the other hand, with all of this happening in the COP, I realized that it's best also to organize works in my local communities. So we started doing school campaigns during this time through our organization called Solar Engineering. And because the Philippines is a hotspot for climate disasters, we've been utilizing art as a form of community healing. So I've been organizing um, um, post traumatic disaster art activities because I realized that when we talk about COP, it's really very political in nature. I'm always reminded in
In
this
the basic
statement
code, you not love it.
that
Say
environmental problem is emotional and environmental solution is technical, while environmental decision is political. So this is where I see the interplay of all of this happening during that COP. So this is the last slide that I'm going to share, but this happened the the super typhoon back in 2013, when the campaigner from the Philippines, Yeb Sanyo, he was the climate negotiator for the Philippines. When he was there in the COP, the super typhoon happened in the Philippines, and it really brought attention to the table that countries that are susceptible for climate disasters are not really prepared even until now, like what's happening right now here in the Philippines. And so the COP is a very important, in a way, becomes a very important platform for discussion in our government, but there is really a lack of support depending on the government. This is where I see the great potential of our group, ITAC, the teaching artists, to become really strong activators, facilitators, and educators in our communities. So I hope that with this inspired energy as a collective, we can continually do the groundwork, um, even if there's top or not, but somehow um, as we move forward, we can take on more young people, especially to be brave enough to demand for climate justice and the call for climate emergency that is really right in front of us right now. So thank you so much for this sharing. You can basically research about COP, but that's sort of like a very brief experience that I've had during COP and also right after and where I am in terms of my engagement with ITAC for ITAC Impact Climate. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ, so much. That's so interesting and such an inspiration to create new projects and new campaigns. Does anyone has a comment or a question for Russ before we go to our next guest? Feel free to open your mics. We won't say anything. We don't bite. This platform is for you, so use it. Feel free to use it and to engage with us and to dialogue. Okay, so well, now we are going to invite Dan, who is a member of an international collective for activists regarding climate change, and who has also participated in many conferences of the parties. So Dan, the floor is all yours. So Dan.
Hello. Just 1 second, I'm just gonna share my screen. Okay. 1 second. Hi everyone. So yeah, my name is Daniel. I'm a kind of public artist and multimedia artist based in Central Eastern Europe in Budapest, Hungary. And I'm one of the coordinators of the Artivist Network. We're an international collective basically focusing on creating a bridge between arts and activism. So we're kind of trying to encourage activists to engage more creativity and more like basically like more visuals, more kind of different kinds of additions to their actions, which helps them to kind of amplify their messages. And we're working together with a lot of artists who either are already in the process of basically using their work to spread a message or to support various movements, or if they're not, then we're currently working on a lot of opportunities for them to kind of learn how to create based on the principles of creative activism. So regarding COP, we are kind of a space which does change a lot over the years, but generally we have an art space, which is usually kind of like a big space where we have a lot of materials and people can come to use them and basically just create their visuals for their actions. And we usually have various artists in residence, which is, for example, in this year, we will have someone who's documentary photography for groups to have their actions documented in a like artistic to in a beautiful way, because it helps you to have outreach. We will have a videographer who is like supporting us by documenting our process, but also documenting the actions which are happening and which we are supporting. We have someone who's more of a visual artist, but also kind of like everybody's a multimedia artist. Who else is involved? It's kind of like everybody is kind of building installations, is good at large scale painting. So it's kind of like a background of like street art, public art, and building various types of visual elements to support protests. This can be basically from massive puppets towards huge like cardboard unicorn heads, towards inflatables. Basically, we're kind of trying to support each group with a medium which is their need. So kind of this art spaces which we host and which we facilitate has been kind of like, for a lot of people, the center of networking as well, because we do believe that kind of these spaces are a space where like we get to work together, we get to collaborate, we get to know each other as well, and it's a great place for us to make new connections. Even if you're not a creative, usually when you arrive, we provide someone who is able to not just make your work for you, but to actually like for you to learn new skills or for your group to learn new skills. We usually support around 50 to 100 actions over the 2 weeks of the summit. Basically this year, I would like to say that sadly, because of the safety reasons of the Egyptian government and authorities, we are not going to host a space which is open to everyone. So we have actually, didn't want to switch slides, but anyway, today, like this year, our space is going to be a production space, and we have action form, where basically, like also what I didn't mention, besides the artists in residence we have, it's someone who is basically supporting groups with submitting their actions, because COP is a space where if you know or if you didn't know, basically there's a lot of rules which you have to follow for you to be able to make an action. So, for example, you're not allowed to name any country or any government. You're not allowed to name any corporations. You probably are not allowed to take in any kind of power tools. But yeah, like basically we are the people who are kind of supporting different groups who sign up to make an action with us or in collaboration with us. Then we kind of support them through all of the process, which is through a sign-up sheet. But there you need to give clear messaging of what your banners are going to say, what your installation is, what, you know, basically like not everything, but most of your key visuals have to be basically told in advance on what they're going to be, because otherwise maybe either they will kick you out of the COP, or they will not authorize your action beforehand. I will post this. I will paste this Google link into the chat once I stop sharing my screen. And if any of you are interested in submitting an action and need support, then we are here for you. Also, me forgetting a few things, sorry, but between the artists in residence, we do have someone who is like theater and choreography artist. So we do encourage people to kind of depending on what their messaging is and what their action is, to explore various types of mediums, because I think it's something which will make the tension much wider, and people can be much more interested in what we're doing and what we're fighting for if we're paired with the right kind of medium and visuals. I would just like to kind of slide through a few things we have made. Like, also we do, like, for us, one of the main things we were doing usually is basically just preparing a lot of visuals for the climate march. Also, like, as you know, this year there is a march, but there is quite a lot of questions around it, because as we know, it's basically like it's authorized by the government, but very surveilled and very restricted. So there is some, as I know, there is like some different organizations planning a People's Summit during that. But regardless, like, what we have been working on is trying to, one, like, for example, like, find like the main message which people can use for the climate march. And for example, here, this I in the middle, and the next one here, this is in solidarity with Chile. This is the COP in Madrid, and basically, like, the whole slogan of the Chilean uprising was Chile Desperto. And, like, you know, basically, like, you know, Chile has woken up, and this is why we implemented that. The world was woken up to the climate emergency, and we tried to, in solidarity, use their symbol as the face of the climate march, because the COP would have been held in Chile, but then got moved to Madrid in the last minute because of the Chilean uprising. It make various
Danny? Okay, we will give him a few moments to see if he comes back. Danny, we're not hearing you. Nope. No, we can see you, but we don't hear you.
hello.
Oh, there it goes.
It's very weird. I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. It's
No
interesting.
problem.
Okay, so can I share my screen again and hope I don't disappear?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
No
I don't know
problem.
where you lost me.
You were
Can
talking
everybody hear
about
me?
Chilean uprising and to use their symbol.
So yes, basically, this was kind of just what I wanted to say, that, for example, this is a way we wanted to support people and their fight in Chile. And yeah, like, for example, the next action is something very visual, but it was also a sound swarm, which means that people were using a lot of speakers which were linked together. And it was basically a herd of extinct animals. And yeah, as you can see, like, their placards were kind of symbolizing different kinds of extinct species. And yeah, it was kind of like a very well led and choreographed action. Also, I talked about us building inflatables, which is something very exciting. This is during the COP in Paris, 2015. We're working together with Tools for Action. And yeah, all of these are made in the art space, and this is why I'm showing these images. So in the production space which we were making lots of these inflatable cobblestones as a symbol of like, you know, the Persian or French resistance. Like, it was made by Arthur van Ballen, who's the artist behind Tools for Action. And then we implemented the things we learned from them into making different kinds of inflatables. Like, this is a huge, like, inflatable gas pipeline. Yeah, and we've been trying to teach groups how to use these kinds of mediums through skill shares. we also kind of provide different kinds of workshops on, like, for example, street art, which can be then implemented in different things which you can use for protests. So all of the key elements which are then key elements which the workshop builds up from is basically there to support you with making strong visuals during a protest or during an action. So yeah, it's like kind of like various kinds of skill shares. We also make some, we also organize some exhibitions, which sadly this year we are probably not going to do unless we have an opportunity to do it in a different space. So yeah, and then as last, we one of our colleagues and coordinators, Kevin, has been the host of Fossil of the Day, which is basically like every day during COP there is like a kind of like huge theatrical presentation and ceremony where it's like Fossil of the Day is an award ceremony, and here basically Kevin is choosing the worst country. So he is nominating the worst country for their worst decisions, and yeah, like I really encourage all of you to check it out. It's an amazing theater piece, and is also very, very informative because it does include all of the research of actually like what decisions are being made over the summit, and at the end of the day, as I said, the worst country gets the fossil. So yeah, as I've said, we are really looking forward to anyone who would like to work with us or who would like to perhaps come and help out in the space. If you know any people who are coming to COP and are creatives, we're happy to have them for a bit to help us if they're up for it. And yeah, basically we're making it that groups have to sign up who want to come because of the security reasons. And yeah, I will post this sign-up sheet into the chat soon. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Danny. That's so interesting. And yeah, that's the only prize no one wants to win. The Fossil of the Day is something we all look forward to during the negotiations. So thank you so much for sharing all of this. Is super interesting, and also like a huge opportunity for different artists and activists to participate during the COP, to have a lot of materials and help to create art and to create different kind of products during the negotiations. So I think that's a huge opportunity. Thank you so much, Danny, for your presentation. Does anyone have question, comment, anything you want to share? Hello? Okay.
Let me quickly step in. First of all, it's good seeing all of you here and at this moment. And Ras, in Ghana, I'm going to call you Ras. Yeah, I appreciate what you're doing. A quick one. You see, whatever we do out there, all right, what we do out there has a bigger, kind of a way of inspiring some of us. All right. You may think you are there doing stuff alone and with community, but on the global map, it is feeding some of us. It's really provoking us to keep doing and keep. So it is not about us or anyone making a presentation today. It's about all of us having experienced that. I mean, receiving and taking in that energy from you guys. And I'm honestly blown by such presentations, because on this platform, we get to know you better. I know what Raz is doing, I know what this is doing, but when we meet here, we narrow all these things. And I'm so grateful to be here. I missed the first one, but I'm here large. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your comment. And yes, as Mary wrote in the chat, that's the idea and that's the main objective of this platform, of this collective. So we are so grateful to have you all here, and we hope to create momentum and to create different actions with which you can engage and to also participate in the climate action and in the fight against climate change. So as long as we can do that, we will consider it mission accomplished. So thank you so much for that. Any other comment? Okay, let me share my screen again so we can address the last part of the meeting. I don't know if you have seen all the mails we have been sending, but we are right now developing a climate and an activist campaign where we are inviting you to share our work through a video. The idea is to create an activity or exercise to inspire others to create or express through art. And the idea is that you tell in the video, you record yourself, and you tell a little bit what you think, what comes to your mind when you think about climate injustices, and to explain the creative process that leads you to create this activity and then to present the activity. The idea is that you record this and you send us this video, and we are going to showcase it during the COP, both at the negotiations and also through our social media, so we could create a multi-platform campaign. Initially, the deadline was last week, but we are extending it to this Sunday. So you still have time if you want to engage in this campaign. All the information you need to do or to create the video and to upload it would be sent to you in today's mail that is going to go out after this meeting. So stay tuned for that. I don't know if anyone of you is already creating a video or if you have any doubts or questions regarding this activity. Anyone? Okay. Either way, if you have any doubts or comments, you can write us to our mail and we will respond ASAP. So you know that that's also a communication channel that you can use, and you can ask and you can talk to us with no problem. More than welcome to send us emails. So we will wait for, we are sending videos. Thank you, Raz. We already have received some videos, but we would like to receive as many as possible. That's why we extended the deadline period. So if you want, you can share. It doesn't need to be a complicated or very refined video. You can even record it with your cell phone or with whatever you have in hand. So yeah, it's not, we don't need a movie. So yeah, we want you to engage, so take that in count. So thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the meeting and you learned one thing or two about the climate crisis, the climate negotiations, and the different ways art is used during these negotiations. I know you probably will have more questions than answers after all of this information, and for that we are going to continue having more climate cafes and PD sessions to continue learning about all these topics and to continue engaging in the fight against climate change. And regarding this, our next meeting would be the 2nd of December. This is on a Friday, the same time as this one. So we hope to see you all in that meeting. Again, thank you so much. You can communicate with us via mail. We are going to be sending all the instructions for the campaign through email and also the recording for this session. Have a really, really nice weekend, and we await for your videos. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.